Over the last, I don't know, decade or so, it's become the epicenter of this wave of arts and crafts revival in China. And that kind of coincided neatly with the emergence of the middle class, right? So as people become more affluent, they're more interested in like traditional crafts, but also an engagement with their own cultural identity as part of this. It's in a way like a search for the heart or soul of what it is to be Chinese in a way, which is kind of lost in this rapid economic progress that was happening the decade before. And so now we have like a very interesting phenomenon where you have people from all different walks of life like congregating here. So you have like office ladies who want to do better pottery, learn the traditional craft. And you have like architects and designers looking for opportunities. And you have, I know, new age hippies who just want to party and do a bit of pottery on the side. They're all coming here basically to seek this sort of some kind of catharsis, essentially. And that's all because Jingdezhen has built up over the centuries this massive economy of scale in terms of the level of craftsmanship and skills that are available that are still very, very cheap. So it's, I guess, but also the state is very aware of this. There's like there's a shift in national policy since Xi Jinping got into power. Right? So before it was all about like hard GDP growth. And now that we're more focused on this sort of soft power, and with that, traditional cultures become like a major target of the local governments, and Jingdezhen governments just received like loads and loads of investment from the national level.
我觉得对我来说，我们主要针对的会是比较有前沿研究性的艺术家，就是他们不是来制造商品，就这个很重要，因为Jingdezhen你来做东西很便宜，就是它有优势，就是人工便宜，材料便宜，所以很多人来他只是做一些产品。可能就是一个现成的杯子或者碗或者盘子，但是它没有太多的创造性，所以就是这样的地方很多。就是你来Jingdezhen可以找一个随便租一个房子，然后就可以做东西。但是对我们来说，我们其实更希望能吸引一些像 Hannes 这样的艺术家，或者是有一些前沿研究性的，比如说他会利用科技的手段，比如说3D 打印机。或者是一些怎么讲新媒体艺术的手段去创作以陶瓷为语汇的这么一个作品。那这样的艺术家对我们来说越来越多了。就是在我自己亲身的观察，以前我身边的朋友大多都是来做东西，因为便宜，然后只是拿去大城市卖。我自己也一样。但后来我发现在这里碰到的人，他们越来越多的需求就是高于了之前。那所以我们这个工作室存在的意义就是提供一个良好的服务和沟通的这么一个场所，这样他们来到这里可以就是和传统工艺和高科技有一个无缝的链接。那其实这个在当今的这个Jingdezhen的发展的这个进程中，我觉得会是有意义的，就是我们想做一个推动者，文化的推动者和艺术的推进的这么一个角色。
Okay, interesting. So you mentioned the connection between tradition, I guess traditional materials and new technology, and that kind of ties in with my last question I was going to ask you. So how do you guys look at pottery, and how do you determine its artistic value or its value? Yeah.
我觉得就是以我个人的角色来讲，像乐天陶社的这个市集。它从以前就是一个大家来淘一些便宜的小玩意儿的地方，但是现在开始有一些年轻人，他就开始转变了，他开始做一些像你说的可能是艺术品，然后它没有实用性， 但是它很有趣，然后它可能作为装饰品，然后或者是仅仅是给大家带来灵感的一个小东西，但其实你已经能看到就是创意的力量了。然后像我们认识一个朋友就住在楼上，他很年轻，然后他以前是一个产品设计师，当然他以前就关注我的 Instagram， 后来他发现我在景德镇做了一些陶瓷的研究，他说这个地方有意思，他就来到景德镇，从深圳来的，广州深圳那边，他会 3D 打印啊，他会这个 3D 建模这些软件，他来了以后他就借助这个软件和 3D 打印去创作他的一些小怪物啊，就是那些大家看起来这个没有用嘛，对中国人来说有用很重要，只是摆在那好看，但是呢他在自己的一步步研究中发现有市场，而且有利润，同时他还可以做自己喜欢的东西，然后这对我来讲就是特别好的事情，就这样人越来越多了，然后我们会经常去逛这些市集，会去参观一些年轻的陶艺工作者的工作室，然后你会发现不断的有新的力量来，新的人进来，他们去乐天摆摊儿，可能就摆1个月，然后他们就可能不再继续摆摊了，他们就在工作室做一些研发，因为有一些外来的一些客户，他们会说你这个有意思，我再找你去做一些订单，那其实对他们来说是一个良性的循环。然后对我来说，就是我看到的就是本地的那些师傅，他们也有更多的资源可以工作，因为其实中国现在不像以前就是大跃进和文革期间的工厂量化的那种生产，以前就是陶溪川的那个宇宙瓷厂和雕塑瓷厂，他们都是一个很大的工厂，很多工人一起在做大家用的这些碗和杯子，那现在那些厂都已经消失了，但是工人们还在，那些工人好多都是厂里退下来的，就是下岗以后他们需要吃饭，所以他们接很多这种年轻艺术家的订单，他们也可以生活。而且现在其实虽然说是人工便宜，但是它还是每年有一个人工的增长，然后但是就是他们这样就是变成了一个互相的有一个提高，我觉得这个是很好的。对。
The most common thing when I speak to foreign artists who come over here is that coming here they have to reorganize in their brain how they create work, because what was available is something that they never even considered before. So they like reconsider like how they make their work, the scale of their work, like what they can do, because everything's so streamlined, and so economical, right? In a way, Jingdezhen makes the artists become more ambitious and rethink, like scale up their production and unleashes some of their creative potential, essentially. That's the unique thing about Jingdezhen. Art has always been a process where one uses art to cultivate the individual, right? So this is a very Confucian concept of the literates who practice art, but art is also something which helps to nourish the soul. There's a complete cyclic relationship between like how cultivated you are and how artistic you are. So quite often that's why artists are often also writers or calligraphers, or they hold like a high office. There's a famous Sung emperor who also is a super famous painter by his own right, Huizong, exactly. So in China, the two are completely interrelated. This idea of the cultivated individual. So many of the artists are, in a way, are not really considered craftsmen per se. Whereas porcelain is slightly different. Porcelain is very much comes from more of a craft tradition. So, which is closer to like the West, for example. When Michelangelo, for example, in his days would have been like artisan and a craftsman before the emergence of like the artist as a independent narrative emerged in the West. The distinction between artisan and craftsman and the artist per se is very much blurred, right? So in that sense, China is completely different from the Western tradition when it comes to the place of art in society and what art the function of art essentially.